Welcome to Grit Machine DNA. It's wonderful to have you back with us. Today I'm joined by Chief Master Sergeant Tony Negron. He is a veteran, 26 years of the United States Air Force Pararescueman, where he finished at the rank of Chief Master Sergeant. Today he is a family man, a husband, father, entrepreneur, incredible business owner, and I'm proud to call him a friend. Tony, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Dave, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having here, man. Thanks for inviting me into your home, and I really appreciate spending some time with you.
It's an honor to have you with us today. So I start very simple.
Okay.
Who is Tony Negron?
Yeah, so, if I have to sum that up, I would say that, I grew up in a small town, or relatively small, back in Indiana, so I was a Midwest boy. I grew up tasseling corn in Indiana, amongst other things, but I think I'm simple in nature, but I have some strong values these days after spending time in the military. So, and they're probably steeply rooted in strong values, ethics, values, and some core standards that I really believe in. And just trying to get through life and raise my family and try to be a man of faith.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your early years. I want to get to your career and what you do today in a bit, but part Puerto Rican, American, of course.
Yep.
How did you grow up? What was it like?
Yeah, so I grew up in Elkhart, Indiana. My parents separated when I think I was about 2 when my parents separated. So I grew up, I guess you could say like a mommy's boy, but I'm not a mommy's boy, because I played sports, I wrestled, I moved around a lot because my mom just, out of necessity, she had to do things like that to provide for myself and my brother. So we ended up moving around a lot in northern Indiana, some southern Michigan, kind of in that tri-state area. I spent a lot of time, went through a lot of different schools, and I would say it was a pretty, by standard, most people would classify it as like a pretty dysfunctional family. We moved around a lot, and I had to figure out a lot of things on the streets. That's because my mom was trying to hold down many jobs. But with that being said, somewhere, I know because my mom would share this with me, that somewhere in my personality, I was still a good person. I was still a good kid. I just didn't have the guidance, and I didn't have a father figure around. And as you know, having a father around is a big deal. And and I made it through high school. I was starting to get into a little trouble, and I eventually graduated, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I found my way to the Air Force. And
how did that happen? Look, it's incredibly important that we have this conversation. We have over 70% African American kids without fathers in the home. With Hispanics now almost 50%, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't have a father figure at home. Your mom's working hard. How did this whole Air Force thing happen?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's funny because in retrospect, when I talked to my mom later, or the day I went down and signed up for the United States Air Force, I came back and told my mother, and she was elated. She was actually happy about it, and because I think she thought that was probably the best thing that probably ever happened to me. She had been dealing with me, just kind of doing this wavering thing, and she wasn't sure where I was going to go because I just didn't have the guidance. But how I got to the Air Force is at some point my senior year, I wasn't ready to go to college, so I knew this. I knew I wasn't ready for schooling. And if I went to college, I'd be going for all the wrong reasons. I was really into partying, and it definitely wasn't focused on education. So I wanted to travel. At some point, I thought I might go to school and I was ready, and the military offered what back then was the GI Bill.
Yep.
And so I went to the United States Air Force because I wanted to get out of Indiana. I wanted to travel, and I wasn't ready to go to college, and I wasn't ready for education. So it seemed like the best thing to probably try out, and that's what I did. I took a chance, and I tried out the Air Force.
Yeah. Did you have any mentorship, anyone in your life that really was guiding you through this process at that time?
No. I did not have anybody except for my mother.
Yeah.
And that's why, she's so special to me today, because she did her best to be the mother and the father. And that's a huge responsibility. That's something huge to throw on anyone. But now, for what she did, I think she did as well as she possibly could under the circumstances.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
First part of your life, you get to the Air Force. Let's talk about that a little bit. Give me the hardest things you ever did, and then the things that shaped you the most. So hardest things, and then what shaped you the most.
Yeah. Okay. So some of the hardest things that the military was an adjustment, but for some people, it was a great adjustment for me, and it's probably because, for all the reasons we talked about before, I didn't have structure. And people like to say that, well, the military can give you some sort of structure. Well, actually, the structure for me was something I thought was awesome. They basically said, hey, look, this is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're going to wear.
Yep.
This is who you're working for.
Yep.
And they also rewarded that structure, and they rewarded your work ethic. And that's one thing I remember early on in my military career is that, people love, it's just human nature. There's some things people really enjoy, and a lot of it's praise and recognition, especially if you never had it.
Yep.
And the military was really good about that. And I noticed it early on, which caused momentum for me to want to really excel in the military, because even as a young guy, specifically within the Air Force, if you performed well, then they recognized it. Yep. And so some of the hardest things, I guess, along the way, so the structure might be viewed by some people as being a very difficult thing to deal with. It wasn't for me. I actually welcomed the structure. Yep. The things that were definitely difficult is eventually I would get into United States Air Force Pararescue. So I was a cop at first, and then somewhere along the way I found out about this Air Force Pararescue, these elite AvSpec war type of folks.
Before we go, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, what a pararescue is?
I want to make sure that the listeners and our viewers understand what a pararescue does.
Okay, so I'll just break it down into lay terms.
Some folks call it paratrooper, parajumper.
Yeah,
pararescue.
no, very different. So pararescue is very specific to the United States Air Force. All right, and what it is, if you could imagine a person whose primary mission is to perform rescue, to save lives anywhere at any time around the world. So anywhere on this planet. So if you can imagine what that entails to do that job, well, if you reverse engineer that, you have to have all these different skill sets that would allow you to execute a rescue, any type of mayhem, any type of humanitarian mission, any type of combat rescue that might take place anywhere on the planet at any time. So whether that's in the air, at sea, on land, in the mountains, you have to be able to rescue, okay? And so you get all the skill sets leading up to that. So there are many, many years that lead up to being awarded the Maroon Beret. And the motto is, these things we do that others may live, which is pretty profound in and of itself, because that's what my job was, was to save lives and help people. So I've always enjoyed that, even from an early age.
I want to repeat that, though. What's the motto?
These things we do that others may live.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yep.
It's profound, but it also, and we're going to talk about this later, but it also speaks to the DNA of who you are and what those people do.
Absolutely.
It is about others.
Yep.
Right?
It's awesome. About others. Yeah. And I always thought that was very unique, and if I just may add a little piece right here, being a PJ is pretty awesome because I got to work with very high-end elite type of people. Yeah. Okay? The most elite teams, organizations, and people arguably on the planet, around the world. I got to deploy with some of the best soft Special Operations Force teams and this and that. And the one thing I really always enjoyed about the Pararescuemen, because their job, even though you went through a lot of the same training, and the training might include jumping, diving, combat dive course, free fall courses, shooting courses, and stuff like that. But the reason why we took a lot of those courses, it's so we could be with those elite teams, those elite units, those elite organizations, some civilian, some DOD, some our counterparts in other countries. Yep. But our focus, the PJ's focus, was about attaching to those teams and actually saving lives.
Right.
You know, going in and saving lives. So you're using those skills, but it's all to help help humanity and help people.
Yeah, it's incredible. So hardest things, and then the things that were most instrumental and most powerful.
Yeah, so some of the hardest things, without a doubt, was NDOC. NDOC is the first, 10 to 12 week school of an AvSpec warrior. It would be congruent to the Navy SEALs going through their buds, Q course guys going through their specialized initiation courses and things like that. But NDOC, without a doubt, was the toughest thing I've ever done. Like I said, I was a cop prior.
So basically training. They get you mentally, physically ready for becoming
a PJ. Yeah. So it's that first school, and it's pretty amazing because I trained really, really, really hard for it. Yeah. And I was actually in really, really good shape. I was, I was hitting the weights. I was running. I was doing everything I understood. I really spent a lot of time in the pool because half of your day at NDOC is spent in the water. You will spend half of your day in the water because water is the equalizer. We're terrestrial creatures, so if you want to weed people out and find out where they are mentally, you put them in the water, have them drown a couple times, and see where they really want to be there. But it's just an extremely tough course. We started with 128 guys, and we graduated 7. And then subsequently, I would lose 2 more guys, and the next 2 years, 2.5 years. But it has a really, really high attrition rate. You have to do that because you want to see where people are. People always say it's the mental toughness. Well, it absolutely is the mental toughness. The part that people miss is that the fastest way to get to somebody's mental toughness and their mental faculties is you run them through physical stuff. You put them in scenarios. You see how they interact with other people. You make them lead on different things. It is the fastest. It's just a really quick way to get them to check where they are mentally. And if they truly, truly want to be there, because, once you break a person down, and that's why they set it up in the way they set it down. I trained to go to NDOC, but it was all on my timeline. Yeah. When you put it on somebody else's timeline, meaning you have instructors that are yelling at you in your ear all the time, and you put it on their timeline, once they break you down as a person, and you really have to decide, man, do I really want to go through this? Is it really worth it? I passed out a couple times underwater. They're going to give you some nice adjectives to get the hell back in the pool or quit right now. Well, most people, they don't want to do that. They ring the bell.
That's right. Yeah, I love
definitely by far the toughest thing I've ever done.
I love it. Ring the bell. Tony, I have to ask you a question at this point, though. We live at a time where it's almost like we're coddling our children. From your point of view, as somebody who's done some of those hardest training in the world, physically and mentally, an incredible career as a PJ, how do you view that as a father? Right? In other words, you have this incredible training where you went through some resilient grit building exercises, most incredible experiences, hardest experiences any of us on this planet have experienced, and now you have children.
Yeah.
How do you instill those qualities into them?
Yeah, well, I would say this is what I would offer, that you have to be very deliberate. And this is why I say that, because remember when you and I were talking about going back to how I was raised? Well, I was a product of my environment. Yeah. Okay? And that's why you always hear these stories, I think, that, hey, look at adversity creates strong people. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, because they've been thrust into this environment they didn't have control of. The irony in the whole situation is that as you and I provide for our kids now, and we have more, we have to be a little bit more deliberate and say no and teach them the things that we had to learn through necessity. We had to learn out of necessity. So I find myself I have to be more deliberate and tell my kids, hey, you can't have everything you want to have. And matter of fact, I'm gonna push you harder because you have more than I had, and I don't like the product that it's creating right now, or at least the product that I think it might be creating. So I don't know if that makes sense, but in my head, I want to be more deliberate on values, morals, and ethics. Hey, this is where I stand on values, morals, and ethics. And what is coddling creating? It's not creating the person definitely that I want my kids to be. Right. I want my kids to be sheepdog. Yep. I want them to protect other people because some people, they just can't do it. Yeah. And some people don't want to do it, and some folks just physically and mentally can't do it. So, you need people like us to help speak for the people who can't speak for themselves.
No question. And I love that too, Tony. There's two parts. There's the first, how do we instill values into our children, values of faith, family, resilience, grit. But B, how do we actually teach them to intentionally live those values and build that resilience? I love those comments.
Yeah.
So Tony, let me get to the next phase. So you were in the military. What did you learn during your time in the military that helped you propel to the next level post-military life?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dave. One thing I will say, and I guess I feel very strongly about this also, obviously, I care about the military, and I would say I'm an institutional man after 26 years, but the core values of the military are phenomenal, and not just the Air Force core values, but if you peel back all the core values of the military, I would put those up against any company out there. Your company, Google, if you peel back the military core values, they're really awesome. And really what they say is, I don't care where you came from. I don't care if you're affluent. I don't care if you're a poor kid. I don't care about your race, your color, or creed. You're going to work together, and whether you like the person or not, you're going to act professional. And this is somewhere, where I think we've gone astray a little bit, that, you don't have to like everybody that you work with. People are not robots, and it's okay to have differences. But you have to be respectful, okay, and mutually respectful, at least in a professional organization.
Absolutely.
So if that makes sense.
I'm gonna nudge a little bit more.
Yeah.
I want two tangible examples or terms of what you learned during your time in the military, 26 years, that has enabled or empowered you in your career.
Yeah. So I would say my work ethic. It might have, I don't even know what my work ethic would have been before I went in the military. We probably discussed some of that, but definitely the work ethic, especially once I got towards the highest levels of my military career, that JSOC, the Tier 1 units. It was amazing to see the work ethic of those people. I guess by the time I got there, you're just a small fish in a big pond. So I would say, the work ethic is something that I could definitely carry from the military into the civilian sector, that I think veterans have some great work ethic, because especially depending on who they served with and at what levels, it's going to be extremely high. And what I mean by that is, I feel like I'm always working. That could probably be a detriment at times, but that's what the military teaches you. You're kind of always on. I'm on work 24/7. So that is definitely something that I brought to running my own business and entrepreneurship. There's no difference. You're on 24/7.
Yeah, but that's a mindset. Right?
That's a mindset.
Your work ethic is a mindset.
Yeah.
What's the second one?
I would say brotherhood. The brother. I really enjoyed the brotherhood of the military, and I guess it's something I try to seek out. That I try to instill in my own business. Try to bring some of the ways we did standard operating in the military to my own personal business.
What's interesting about that comment, though, is I can peel that into so many things. The first one is loyalty, honor, respect, caring.
That's right.
Kindness, empathy. So I love that one. Because you can break that down into so many components. And then in the first one, the work ethic, same thing. Look, work ethic, of course, but dedication, discipline, accountability.
And we were just talking about that with our kids.
I love that. All right, so let's get to leadership. We haven't talked about leadership. There's a lot of discussion out there about what a leader is. I want to hear from one of the most hardcore people I know. What's leadership?
Yeah, it's huge, because it's almost like an easy question to ask, but if you really want to, it's almost like an umbrella term, leadership. But I guess leadership to me is, it's helping. Obviously, if you apply it towards business or any organization out there, you want to get people kind of on the same sheet of music and things like that. But I look at leadership as maybe helping people or a person try to reach their personal goals of fulfillment and success. and hopefully we try to make that align with, I guess if you're within a military, a team, an organization, if we can make those align with the company's goals, well, that's a good day all around. But I do believe that if you can get a person or people to reach their best self, then if you're the person to do that, maybe you're in the company, I think they're going to give that back to the company.
So enabling or empowering others to do better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's through experience, through guidance, through caring, through mentorship. Yep. I think it's through all those things.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Showing, again, back to serving others.
Yeah, servant leadership. You hear that servant leadership type of thing, but that's truly what it is. If you look at the military structure, the rank structure of the military, that's really what it is. Yeah. Down here you have the people right out at the flight line, the basic guy doing maintenance on an aircraft. Well, the person, his boss, he should be doing everything he possibly can to enable that guy to be able to do that job. He really is, he's the boss, but he's really serving that guy. And the guy right above him is really enabling, he's helping the other guy be able to do that. So he's serving him. So all the way to the top, that's really what it is. You're serving all these people right down to the terminal area.
I love that, Tony. In my work, right, leading people, I don't lead. I serve. I'm there to serve them.
To help them get their job done.
Yes, I'm there to empower them. What can I do for you to make it better?
Yep. You're removing barriers.
Yes.
You're helping them because they might not have all the network you have, the skills you have, and your experience. That's what you should be leveraging your experience to remove barriers for them, to network for them. And when they come to you with their personal problems, that's which is the greatest thing. Yeah. That should be the greatest reward when somebody comes to you with a personal problem at work and says, "Hey, I need help with this." Man, to open up that key right there and to give them some sort of help, that's
powerful.
That is a powerful thing.
I wish we were teaching children that skill set more and more. Yeah. Right? We're teaching but unfortunately we're teaching you're the guy, you're the individual, you can do this, as opposed to how do you prepare to help others do better for themselves.
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss the focus. You could easily miss the focus on, well, hey, I've earned this, I'm the boss now. Well, don't forget really why you got there. And second of all, nobody gets to those positions by themselves anyways. Right. Or I've never met anybody who's got to those positions. Either. I made it all the way up to the chief because I had a lot of people looking out for me. And then I tried to work really hard to bring up the next guys and look out for those guys. And that's the way it's supposed to work.
I love that. Tony, let's get now to the next phase. There are two things. One of the many things I admire about you is this spirit of entrepreneurship. How did that happen from, here's this young man who had a mom, struggled at home, partied, goes to the Air Force, becomes one of the most elite operators in the world. How did the spirit of entrepreneurship take hold? Like, how did this happen where you started businesses? How did that come about? And I want to poke at this for a while because we don't teach kids or adolescents to be entrepreneurs. We teach them to take orders.
Yes.
Well, how did this happen?
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, I've always, I had some great mentors along my path after 26 years. And maybe we'll talk about some of those guys later on. But, I've always tried to tell my guys, and it's because it was taught to me by these other guys, like, hey, always try to position yourself or be in the best possible position, your best self when an opportunity presents itself. Okay. So I learned that kind of not very early on, but I definitely learned it by the time I was meeting my tenure in the military. Yeah. And I've always tried to tell my people, and PJs, your most elite teams that are out there, that's kind of a model they kind of live by. And really, if you break it down and you talk about at the terminal area, you always have to have your gear ready. Yep. You always have to know your job. Yep. So when the balloon goes up and you get the call, and we have to go to wherever we have to go to. Yeah. You're ready to go. That's not the time. Yep. Remember you do all your sweating in the wrestling room, not out on the mat. Right. That's you got to be prepared. So that kind of helped, and so towards the latter part of my career, really about my last 2 years, 3 years, I was kind of trying to decide what I want to do. You know, I could have stayed on for 5 more years, 4 more years, because I was going to finish off at 26, and I could have done theoretically 4 more years. But an opportunity came up. Okay. An opportunity came up to buy a business up here in New Hampshire, where I'd been training for the better part of my career, and I was in a position to capitalize on that. Wow. And I broke it down very analytically. I remember I went to a dry erase board. You know, I got with my wife and I said, hey, this is what we have. I could stay on here in the United States Air Force and serve and continue to do that. And we broke down what that would look like. And then, you know, we broke down this other thing. And the other thing was new for me, but I've always believed, and I was always taught, you grow, you continue to grow when you take on things that you're not comfortable with. Yep. And that's, I've seen that all my career. You know, there would be these things that come along. I'm like, man, I'm not really comfortable with that. And then you get through it. And then that prepares you for the next thing that comes along. And then you always kind of think like, man, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then that thing comes along. You thought it was worse than the other one. Then you get through that. Well, that's where resiliency comes in. That's how resilience, how it's made. So there was an opportunity, and I capitalized on it, and I bought the business. Now, what I learned subsequently after that, really to answer probably the second part of your question, is where's the, okay, yeah, but you're continuing to do other business stuff, and I am, because I really love business. And here's why I think. So in this world I grew up in pararescue, my job was always to be a fixer. I was always a fixer. We'd go into Afghanistan, we'd go into Iraq, we'd go to any country in the world, and my boss would go, hey, get the CSAR plan set up for the country. For the country. Okay? Like, not for the store, not for the team, not for the shop. Like, and I need it in 4 hours, or I need it in 3 hours. So the job taught me that, hey, look it, find a way. You know, and I've always liked that that axiom or that quote by Hannibal, which is, you know, if I can't find a way, I'll make a way. Totally believe in it, 100%. I think it's one of the best things out there, and I try to teach it to my kids. And I think it ties very nicely to entrepreneurship, connecting the dots, and keeping the mind stimulated.
And what I love about it too is you're basically, as an entrepreneur, you have to solve problems. Right? That's how you build value. There are 2 things you said that really stand out for me, Tony. The first one is you had an opportunity, and you and your wife analyzed the options. You took a whiteboard and analyzed. That's a skill set that needs to be taught. Right? How to analyze a problem and then break down pros, cons, options. That's right. Right? As opposed to making an emotional decision. You took a very analytical approach to that. Incredible takeaway. The second takeaway is you had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because that's how you grew. And that's how you grow. Talk a little bit more about that. As it applies to people.
Because you know, I heard it first in pararescue. Matter of fact, when people go into those type of jobs, hey, you want to be a SEAL, you want to be, a CAG dude. Well, you might as well. You're going to have to get comfortable at being uncomfortable. It's a real thing because, you know, you're thrust into chaos, you're thrust into war. But business is like that too. You know, business is absolutely like that. But I think because I learned that in the military, and I had to deal with so much. You know, I didn't have all the data. You know, intel, we'd only get 70% of it. But I learned to feel comfortable in the world of like, well, I don't need all the data. You know, well, man, this is going all the way back. I'll share one story with you. I didn't think about it till just now. Before I was a PJ and I was a cop for those first 5 years, I was a missile cop up in Minot, North Dakota, Northern Tier Nuke Base. And I was a young cop, and they would you go out to the missile field for 3 days at a time, and they'd do a little scenario. Your supervisor would come out and do like a little scenario, and you had to respond to the scenario. And as a young guy, I remember the first scenario, I didn't know how to respond to the scenario. I didn't know the best thing to do once the alarm went off, and I went out there and I had my Overwatch cop, and I just didn't do very well. And so my supervisor walked up to me and he goes, well, what happened? And I go, well, I don't know. I didn't know the best way to handle the scenario. And he goes, so you didn't make a decision? I go, yeah, I guess I didn't make a decision. He goes, that's the worst thing you can do. He goes, you can never do that again. He goes, you always have to make a decision. And you know why you always have to make a decision? Because we can learn from right and wrong.
That's right.
We can't learn from indecisiveness, because we don't even have anywhere to begin.
That's right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I remembered that early on.
Yeah.
And, and I guess we try to adjust fire from there all through the years.
Powerful. Lessons that I hope the listeners and viewers take away. It's a powerful lesson. Tony, so you have a couple of businesses. If you don't mind, say a little bit more about what they are, just for the folks listening, and then we're going to dive into it.
Yeah. So I own a company called S.E.I., Sierra Echo India. It's really Greenfeed Enterprises. But what it does is, like I was talking about, I used to come up to New Hampshire all the time. So I train soft guys, Special Operations Force guys all around the world, all around the country. But, it's a kind of a boutique company, meaning that people call us up and they said they want to do some training. I just simply go, give me the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why, and I put it together for them. Wow. That's what we do. So whether it's leadership courses, shooting courses, mountaineering courses, medical courses, resiliency courses, and family type of what I call preservation of the force and family courses. Yeah. That's what S.E.I. does, But and then Fusion Cell, which I think you're very familiar with. So Fusion Cell was something, it wasn't on my radar to start up, but what it was is out of necessity. Because I was involved in S.E.I. and I came from the 26 years in the military, and myself and another friend of mine started up the Pararescue Foundation. Because all that was going on, veterans were calling me up looking for jobs. And then I was doing what so many veterans before me did, which is I would push them back over into contracting overseas and hey, go back into the same stuff they just left. And subsequently what happened is 5 of my friends got hurt, maimed, or killed after they already had full retirements. So they'd done their time in the military, 20 plus years, they'd gotten out and went right back over into contracting and got hurt, maimed, or killed. So because of that, I said, I'm not doing that anymore. If guys ask me for jobs, I'm going to try to get them a job in somewhere else, maybe corporate, civilian workforce. And that's where you and I started meeting each other. I met this guy, Jack Heath, who did an iHeartRadio talk show. He was a talk show host, and him and I just used our connections to try to go around to local businesses and say, hey, would you be willing to hire veterans? Of course, everybody's like, well, of course I'll hire veterans. They just got to be qualified, And so that's Fusion Cell. So that's a very rapidly growing business right now to help veterans find jobs, after they finish their time in the military. And guess what? It sits well with me because I still could continue to serve.
That's right.
Which is pretty awesome.
That's right. I tell people, Tony, and I've been doing this for a long time, hiring veterans is akin to hiring athletes. I don't hire for quote unquote resumes. I hire for athletes. I want people that can think. I want people that can make decisions. And I want people that are risk takers.
Absolutely.
They learn from their decisions and they're faster for it. And so it's a blessing to work with veterans, and I appreciate what you're doing for it. It's always hire the best, and the best are always going to be your elite thinkers and athletes. So love what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to pivot a bit. Family.
Okay. Yeah.
Father, husband.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Oh man, this was a tougher one. So let me start with husband first.
Yeah.
Because you've met my lovely wife Katusha.
You mean your pillar?
Yeah, the pillar, the rock. She's the rock, the foundation. So Katusha Negron, means the world to me. I think marriage is a very sacred and wonderful thing. She's been with me through the better part of my military career, and she has absolutely 100% been the rock. The nice thing about being a husband and finding a wife, it's just if you truly find the right one, it's a beautiful thing to be able to spend this precious time on earth with having someone that before we go to heaven, that you truly love. It just makes the time here on the planet, I think more rewarding to find somebody that you can truly relate to. And so I absolutely love being a husband. I absolutely love my wife.
So you spent years, 26 years.
Yeah.
Married about 21, I think it is.
Yeah,
She was right. You were wrong.
That's right. I said 22. So that goes to show you right there. She brought it down a year.
That's right.
Okay.
So how, for the folks listening, how were you able to do that? It's a long time being away from home, working through grit, toil. What were the, let's say, two things that really made it possible?
Yeah, to be able to hold the marriage together, you think?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think it's finding the right one. You know. So my wife is we're Catholics, so she has very strong faith.
Yeah.
So I think that helped out a lot.
No question.
Okay, I think it absolutely helped out a lot, her having a strong faith, because it was not easy when 9/11 happened. Because at the unit I was with, I was gone a lot. Yeah. Everybody was gone a lot. Yeah. But my wife had such a strong faith. Obviously early on in the war, the political will was there and you have a lot of support. Yeah. But, as the years start to tick away, maybe 7 years and now we're going into Iraq and, the political will shifted. So now once all that happens, all the other support starts to, any wife who was back here or spouse, they're feeling the pressure of hey, I'm not, we don't have any support on this. When are you going to finish up over there? So it's unfortunate because many of my friends are divorced, and which it's sad because, not only do I have a relationship with them, but my wife has a relationship with the wives and all the collateral damage that comes out of a marriage. It's unfortunate. Yeah. But to get back to your question, I think faith, having a strong faith is very important. And then I think, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but when you got to choose, you got to spend some time choosing the right person, and because I know I got very analytical on that also.
Say more.
Well, I don't know if I want to say more, but let's just say that I tried to be very objective and very analytical when I decided, hey, I'm really thinking about marrying this woman. And but
you went to the whiteboard.
Man, is Katusha going to watch this? I went to the whiteboard, man.
We're going to keep going.
I went to the whiteboard.
We're going to keep going. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So fatherhood.
Yeah.
What has been the most rewarding part of being a father?
I think the most rewarding part is, well, first of all, feeling blessed that God would hand us children and say, hey, I trust you, because man, this can almost be emotional, man. Yeah. But that God would say, hey, I'm gonna honor you with 4 of my children. Yes. And I'm expecting you to raise them.
Absolutely.
But now with that being said, I will tell you that raising 4 boys has been the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. It's without a doubt.
Yep.
It's a tough, going to combat, leading men in combat doesn't hold a candle to raising my boys. And anybody who ever said, hey, there's no book on this. Yeah, you can take some little nuggets out of this book and over here and maybe grab one of these things over here, but whoever said that, hey, there's no book on that and every kid is special in his own way, they were spot on, because you could probably write volumes and get volumes of book on just one of your children, and then none of them will work on the next child. Right. And it is very, very tough for me, but and I don't think I've tried to do what I think's right. The only thing I try to stick to is the stuff I believe in, which are the values, morals, and ethics that you and I talk about. Yep. And then I try to instill them and try to give them to them. They just don't always want to receive them.
That's right.
Or they don't want to receive them in the manner I'm giving them, or they don't want to receive them at the time I want to give them. So, but I guess where resiliency falls in is that my mom, going back to something my mom said, my mom always says to me, and she still says it to me to this day, is that, you think your kids aren't listening, you just got to keep beating it in them. And then one day you'll look back at them and go, wow, I guess they were listening, because I didn't think you were listening. And look at you. You say so many of the things that I said to you, and I don't know if that's fair.
I love it. So Tony, it's the key reason behind the book that I wrote, American Familia.
Yeah.
I when I left Stewart to come raise my sons and be home, it was the hardest thing. It still is the hardest thing I'm ever going to do.
Yeah.
I have 2 incredible sons. I don't want the world to raise them.
Yeah.
I want to instill my faith, my family, my resilience, perseverance, education, critical thinking, all in them. And
Yes.
they're both different.
Yeah.
And every day is different with them. But I love it. And one of the things that I've learned that's been the most rewarding for me is it's changing me as a man.
Yeah.
I always thought that everything had to be hard hammer, aggressive.
Yeah.
And my 2 sons are very different. One of them has taught me to be gentle.
Yeah.
And I love the journey that they've put me on, because as I'm teaching them, they're teaching me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you shared with us today. Let me ask a couple more family questions, Tony. You are running companies. You have an incredibly powerful wife. You have 4 sons. How do you balance the time? How do you manage?
Yeah. You know how everybody always says, find the balance. I don't think you can find the balance. I just truly don't think it's impossible. The nice thing is that, I'm running my own business today.
Yep.
So I'm not in the military. So I at least get to pick on some of the decisions that, unfortunately, when the kids were younger, I couldn't.
Yep.
I had no choice.
That's right.
And I had to go. So with that being said, at least since I've separated from the military, I'm going to take a day off. We're going to go on that hike, like I was telling you about, and I carve out, I try to carve out that time and make them first, and then maybe build some of my other business schedules around the family.
Absolutely.
Just because I couldn't always do that.
Yeah, I'm going to poke a little bit though.
Yeah.
You're saying that you can't. It's hard to find the balance, right? It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But you have, right?
Yeah.
You've made intentional decisions to schedule time, vacations, etc.
Yeah.
So how do you do that, right? My point is, look, I had to learn how to do this. I had to learn and teach myself every morning.
Yeah.
I book myself to say I must spend time with my wife, my kids.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I think, you're right. That's a great point. So you have to prioritize. Okay. So no matter what, you're always going to have to prioritize.
That's where I was going.
Okay. And I know that's what you were getting at when you asked me that. So I'm in a position now where, I can prioritize in a certain way. Okay. So I chose my family over here on this month, and that's going to be a priority. And I'm going to build all the other schedule around that. And, in some ways, because I couldn't do that when I was a younger guy, and I had other things, and you know how it is. It's some months I can probably dedicate more time with my family, and there's going to be other times where I'm like, with Fusion Cell, and Matt's like, hey, look we need you to engage on this. Can you help us out? Yeah, I'm going to go. That's my priority over there. Yeah. And that's just a part of life, man. It's like you said with the whiteboard and some things you just kind of got to do to get to where you need to get to. Yeah. And if you can't prioritize or don't know how to prioritize, it could definitely be a little bit more difficult for you.
Yeah. And that's why I poked.
Yeah, I know. I knew when you were
high performing guy.
Yeah.
Companies, 26 years. You're 1% elite, right? But even at your level, you have found a way to prioritize family. Yeah. And I want my listeners and viewers to hear that, because anything is possible, but you have to make it a priority. Yeah. Right? Whether it's family, career, etc. But at the end of the day, what's fundamental about what we're hearing today from you, Tony, is you are a family man first. And I love that message. Yeah. You have prioritized serving others. Your family comes first. Yeah. You have to find the time. You make the time. Yeah. And I hope my listeners hear and viewers hear that. Yeah. And you got to make sacrifices too. Even though for the most part I'm in control of my schedule today, where I wasn't always that way. Yeah. I had some stuff I had to get done. I had to pull all-nighters. But I'm okay with pulling all-nighters. Now, all-nighters are like all-nighters. Like I'm grabbing some Red Bull, and this thing has to be done. Somebody needed something, and
it was a priority to me.
Yep.
So I had to pull some all-nighters. I literally didn't go to bed until 6 a.m, and those are things you have to do.
You have to do.
And if you don't want to do those type of things, then you go in the direction where you decide you want to go. That's just the way it is.
I love it.
So.
The last question that I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
Love to see how you answer this one.
Yeah.
Is
this a setup? Are you setting me up here?
No, not at all, man. Not at all. I wouldn't dare do that.
Yeah.
What is Tony Negron's purpose?
Man. That's it. Okay. I don't
Think
even know.
About it.
No. It's good. It's a good question, because, I don't know if it's entirely been revealed yet. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, it's funny you ask, because in some ways I think it's shifted. So, I had this plan of running a business, which is what I'm doing today. And I do like entrepreneurship, and I love business stuff. I know, because I'm always thinking about it, and I love connecting the dots and helping other people do like business. It's very fun. But I will tell you that it seems like more and more, because I do this Pararescue Foundation type of thing, and with the veterans, and then if you look at what Fusion Cell, why it started, it was to help veterans. I guess I'm finding myself in this capacity that I really, really enjoy. It's a little bit of counseling, mentorship for, I'd say, predominantly veterans, guys who need help, who are struggling, not even, and I'm not even talking in the area just to find work, but I'm talking about in the area of other struggles they're personally having, deep personal internal struggles. I actually find it very rewarding. I really, so I don't know if that's what you're searching for, but I guess I found myself as a PJ before I was serving. Now I'm finding myself back in this servant role of helping my fellow veteran brothers who, just need somebody to listen and help with,
I love it. It's almost like a lifetime of service.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but I like it. I actually really enjoy it. And most of them just want to talk. They're, and so you got to be I've had to learn more, and a buddy said it to me one time. He's like, there's a reason why you have one mouth and two ears. You need to shut up and listen. And I've had to pull myself more into a role of listening more, but it's been good for me too.
That's awesome. All right, promise you last question, because it prompted one more question.
Yeah.
If you were sitting here with Tony Negron at 12 years old, knowing all that you know now, 4 kids, your career, incredible life, what would you say to Tony?
Oh man, yes. It's tough. That, I guess, in lies the irony of the situation, because you learn all this great wisdom, but then by the time you learn the wisdom, you're so old to use it. So wish you could go back and infuse it in it. But from a practical, I'll answer it in a practical sense, because I'm a practical man. From a practical sense, I guess I'd say, hey, look at man. Life's frail, first of all, and we never really touched on that, about the frailty that I learned in war, and it caused me to have different mindsets about God and the frailty, how frail we are. So I guess I'd go, hey, look at man, enjoy your youthfulness, enjoy your time, don't take it for granted, understand that you're frail, and straighten up on your education. I know, and I say it as a joke, but I'm really not joking. I didn't buckle down enough on my schooling, and I had to make up for it later when I could have just knocked it out. I wish if I'd have just knocked it out then, it would have saved me some time later, if that makes sense. And that may not be as profound as you like, but
no, we're not looking for profound.
Yeah.
But
it's practical.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that there's a key message here underlying what you're saying to the 12-year-old. It's first, understand life is frail. Enjoy it, live it, but be responsible. Right?
Yeah.
And number 2, understand that education is a key, powerful tool.
It is.
Yeah.
And not to be taken lightly. And when I say education, and I think you and I agree on this. Hey, there's education in your school and your Ivy Leagues and stuff, but I'm talking about education of the mind.
Yes.
and networking and relationships. And I'm talking about education in that sense, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Tony, before we break, quick for the, again, listeners and viewers, just to recap, how do they find out more about your companies and your foundation?
Yeah, so man, if you're interested in a great nonprofit to support and get behind, man, I hope I did it justice, but the Pararescue Foundation, pararescuefoundation.org. Okay, Fusion Cell for any veterans who need help transitioning out after your post-military 10-year service, looking for a job, man, and for clients. I mean, I'd actually even say my plea would be more to companies who are looking for everything Dave talked about on why, man, it would be great to hire veterans, man. With their cultural experience, their real world experience, and from the athlete perspective, fusioncell.com. Man, please visit fusioncell.com. We definitely need clients and great companies who are interested in, hiring qualified. Okay, I say qualified veterans.
That's right.
Okay, that way you get what you want and more. Yeah. And then for soft guys who are out there looking for some great training, SEINH.com. So SEI-NH.com. Punch it up on Google SEI.
Thank you, Tony.
Right.
It was incredibly humbling and an honor to have you here today. Thank you for who you are.
Yeah.
And thank you for your incredible service to our country, Tony. It was truly a pleasure and an honor to have you today.
The honor's all mine. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Thank you.
Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor. Sigue su camino y pronto nacerá la paz en tu corazón. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino.